The receptionist saw him as just another traveler, not knowing he was the wealthy owner of the hotel. Before we start the tale, let us know in the comments which city you're watching from. At the end, please rate the story from 0 to 10. Enjoy! Emma Rodriguez almost spilled her coffee when she noticed a man walk into the Grand Plaza Hotel lobby. He looked unkempt, messy hair, a thick beard, an old backpack, and worn sneakers. "No, no, no," Emma whispered to herself as she left the front desk and hurried over to him. "Excuse me, sir." The man turned around, and Emma was surprised to see his warm skin and striking eyes. For a moment, she hesitated. There was something about his gaze that contrasted with his rough look. "Are you lost?" she asked, trying to smile while standing between him and some guests enjoying their tea. "I can give you directions to the nearest hostel. It's just 6 blocks away." Michael Blackwood held back a laugh. After 3 weeks of hiking in the Colorado mountains, he indeed looked like a wanderer. Now back at his own hotel, one of his staff was attempting to send him away. "Actually," he said, adjusting the strap of his old backpack, "I'd like a room." Emma blinked, unsure if she had heard him correctly. "A room here?" She glanced around nervously at the other guests. Mrs. Wellington, a socialite from New York, was already making an annoyed face, indicating she would complain soon. "Sir, this is the Grand Plaza. Our rooms start at $500 a night." Michael nodded, understanding the prices. "I know the hostel on 47th takes daily payments," Emma whispered, lowering her voice. She then reached into her purse and pulled out a crumpled $5 bill. "Here, for a sandwich. You look really thin." Her unexpected kindness surprised him. Michael looked at the bill, realizing it was likely her own lunch money. A feeling stirred within him. When was the last time someone cared if he was hungry? He was not just a billionaire CEO, but a person in need at that moment. "That's very kind," he said, genuinely moved. "But I really do need a room. I have a credit card." Emma sighed dramatically. "Backpackers always cause trouble," she muttered, glancing around. "All right, but if there's any problem," she said, making a gesture that meant he would have to leave. "Promise no trouble." As they walked back to the front desk, Emma quietly signaled Tony, the security guard, to watch the man. He seemed too polite to be a common drifter, but it was always better to be safe. She asked, with her fingers ready at the keyboard, "Name, please." "Michael Blackwood," he replied. Emma didn't look up as she typed. "What type of room would you like, sir?" "What do you have available?" Michael asked. Emma checked the system. "We have a nice standard room for $250 per night." "How about the presidential suite?" Michael said, a hint of amusement in his voice. Emma paused, surprised. "If it's available, the presidential suite is $3,000 per night." Michael nodded. She stared at him in disbelief. Was he serious? She double-checked the system. The suite was available. "You'll need to run your payment first," she said slowly. Michael handed her a matte black credit card. Emma held it under the light, checking for any signs of trouble, then ran it through the machine. She held her breath, waiting for the outcome. "Approved," she murmured, looking back and forth between the screen and Michael, surprised. "Great," Michael said, but Emma lowered her voice. "Are you sure this card isn't stolen? We've had issues with that before." Michael chuckled softly. "I'm pretty sure it's legit." Emma still felt unsure. She discreetly picked up the phone and called the bank. "Hello, this is Emma Rodriguez from the Grand Plaza Hotel. I need to verify a transaction." She whispered the card numbers while keeping an eye on Michael. "Yes, it'll hold," she said. Michael casually looked at a brochure as she waited. When she got the information, she was surprised. "The credit limit? There isn't one." "I see," Emma said, her voice rising a bit. "Thank you." She hung up and stared at Michael. "Everything went through?" he asked. "Yes, but I still need you to sign a few forms to confirm your signature." Michael signed the registration form and 2 others. Emma carefully compared each signature with his ID, focused like a detective. "One more thing," she said, pulling out her phone. "I need a photo for our records, standard procedure for special guests." Michael patiently posed while Emma took 3 photos with the flash on. "All set," she said, finally handing him the key card. "The suite is on the top floor." Just then, a man's voice interrupted. "Is everything all right?" Emma turned to see Richard Morgan, the general manager, approaching with a friendly smile. "Everything is fine, Mr. Morgan. Just checking in, Mr. Blackwood," she said, glancing at Michael. Richard's demeanor changed instantly. He looked surprised and respectful. "Mr. Blackwood," he exclaimed, reaching out to shake hands. "It's a pleasure to have you back. How was your trip?" Emma watched, puzzled, as Richard greeted Michael warmly. "Very different from what I'm used to," Michael replied, shaking Richard's hand. Richard laughed, saying, "If you need anything—" Emma cut in, lowering her voice. "Mr. Morgan, may I speak with you privately for a moment?" Richard looked surprised, but agreed. Emma stepped a little away and whispered urgently, "Be careful. He might be very skilled at scamming. The card went through, but something feels off." Richard followed her gaze, noticing Michael, who was admiring a flower arrangement with his old backpack at his feet, completely unaware of their discussion. "Emma," Richard said slowly, "do you know—" "Who is that man?" Emma asked. "He seems like someone who has lost their way." Richard hesitated before speaking. He didn't want to share too much. "He won the lottery," he finally said. Across the lobby, Michael overheard bits of their chat. "He won the lottery?" Michael thought, smiling to himself. "Why not? It's much simpler than explaining all the money from inheritance and investments." "Yes," he said as he walked back over. "Are you still getting used to the lottery win?" He pointed vaguely toward the fancy lobby. Emma nodded, happy that her idea was right. It made sense that a lottery winner would still be new to this kind of wealth and not yet used to dressing for fancy places. "Well," Richard said, still thinking things over, "congratulations on the win. If you need any advice about investing or—" Emma interrupted, feeling responsible. "I've already shared a few basic tips on what new wealthy people should know." Michael bit his lip to hold back a laugh. "Emma's been very helpful, I'm sure," Richard said, glancing between them as if trying to piece together a puzzle. "Well, Mr. Blackwood," Emma said, switching back to her professional tone, "your suite is ready. Breakfast is served from 6 to 10. Room service is always available and—" She hesitated. "If you need help with anything, I'm here." The sincerity in her voice touched him again. "Thank you, Emma. Really." Michael walked toward the elevators, his backpack slung over his shoulder, moving casually for someone heading to the most expensive room in the hotel. Emma turned to Richard. "Keep an eye out," she whispered. "New lottery winners are easy targets for scams." Richard slowly nodded, still trying to grasp that one of the richest men in the country had just been mistaken for someone without a home by his own employee. "I'll keep my eyes open," he promised, as the elevator doors closed. Finally, Michael let a smile show. 3 weeks in the mountains had given him a new view on his life, but Emma had given him something even better, the experience of being treated like a regular person. The next morning, Emma arrived at work with a purpose. She had spent the whole night feeling bad for judging Michael so quickly. He'd won the lottery, a life-changing event that should be celebrated, and she had treated him like he might be a troublemaker. Even worse, he clearly didn't know how to act in fancy settings. Emma felt it was her duty to help him fit into the wealthy world before he made any embarrassing mistakes. She opened a notepad and began writing quickly. "Survival Guide for Newly Rich," she scribbled at the top of the page. Then she crossed it out and wrote, "Basic Guide, How Not to Look Out of Place in Nice Places." The list grew quickly. Never wear flip-flops in the lobby or any public area. Don't ask for discounts at the front desk, even if the prices seem too high. Don't put food from breakfast in your pockets, no matter how tempting. Always greet the staff politely, but don't get too personal. Use utensils for everything, even pizza. Don't take pictures of your food that shout "new here." Never ask how much things cost at the restaurant. Use the restroom to wash your hands, not for cleaning up completely. Don't talk about prices with other guests. Dress properly. No torn shorts at dinner. Emma read over the list with satisfaction. It was complete, useful, and most importantly, it would save Michael from future embarrassment. When Michael walked into the lobby at 10 o'clock in the morning, still wearing the same old jeans but freshly showered, Emma stopped him right away. "Mr. Blackwood, perfect timing!" She waved the paper in front of him. I prepared something that'll really help you. Michael read the title and almost choked. Guide on How Not to Look Poor. Exactly. Emma beamed with pride. Basic rules to help you adjust to your new financial situation. Trust me, this will help you avoid awkward moments. Michael scanned the list, trying not to laugh. Use utensils for pizza. Don't photograph food. Was she serious? This is very thorough, he said. 2 years of experience with all kinds of hotel guests, Emma said confidently. I can spot a newly rich person from a mile away. No offense, she added. None taken, Michael mumbled, still wrapping his head around getting advice from a 26-year-old employee. Let's start with the basics, Emma said. Rule number 1, never wear flip-flops in the lobby. Michael looked down at his worn sneakers. What if I don't have the right shoes? Uh-huh, Emma replied, pulling a card from her purse. My friend Patricia works at a shoe store 3 blocks from here. Tell her I sent you, and she'll give you a discount. The irony was clear. One of the richest men in the world being told how to save money on shoes. Thank you, Michael said seriously. That's very helpful. You're welcome. Now, rule number 5, use utensils for everything, even pizza. Michael pretended to be shocked. But pizza is meant to be eaten with your hands. Emma shook her head firmly. Not in places like this. Rich folks eat pizza with a fork and knife always. The more casual the food, the more formal the way to eat it should be. Michael nodded seriously, as if learning ancient wisdom. Got it, fork and knife for pizza. Noted. Great, let's practice. Emma led him into the hotel restaurant where lunch was being served. A few tables were filled with business people in meetings, tourists planning their day, and a group of socialites chatting. Table for 2, Emma said to the host, who recognized Michael but remained professional. Of course, Miss Rodriguez. Table 23 has a great view. Once seated, Emma took her role as instructor seriously. Remember, sit up straight and don't put your elbows on the table. She paused dramatically. We're ordering pizza to practice rule number 5. Michael almost laughed out loud. Pizza for lunch? Trust me, it's the ultimate test. The waiter, Robert, who had worked at the hotel for 15 years and knew Michael, looked slightly surprised to see him with Emma but stayed polite. Good afternoon. What can I get you today? 1 margarita pizza, Emma said confidently, and 2 sparkling waters. Excellent choice, Robert replied, carefully avoiding Michael's gaze. As they waited, Emma continued her lesson. Rule number 6, don't take photos of your food. It screams first time in a fancy place. What if I want to show my friends? Michael asked. Resist the urge. Rich folks don't take food pictures, they just eat. The pizza arrived in 15 minutes, served on a lovely plate. Michael looked at the utensils next to his plate as if they were very important tools. Now show me, Emma said with her arms crossed. Michael carefully picked up the fork and knife. He cut a small piece of pizza, chewed slowly, and swallowed with a thoughtful expression. How is it? Emma asked. Very refined, Michael said. At a nearby table, a middle-aged couple watched with interest. The woman whispered something to her husband, who shook his head in surprise. Michael continued to eat his pizza using a knife and fork. He cut the slices into small, neat pieces, chewed with his mouth closed, and dabbed his lips with the napkin after each bite. Perfect, Emma whispered, proud of him. You're learning fast. Across the restaurant, 3 businessmen stopped their conversation to see what was happening. One of them quietly pulled out his phone, almost as if he were observing something unusual. Can I ask you something? Michael said as he cut another tiny piece. Of course, Emma replied. Why are you helping me? Yesterday you thought I was a criminal. Emma felt a little embarrassed because she realized she had judged Michael by how he looked, which wasn't right. Her grandma always said, it doesn't matter where you're from, but where you're going. You won the lottery, and that's amazing. You deserve every chance to fit in. Michael felt touched by her words. Here was someone who truly cared about him, not knowing that he already had more chances than he could ever use. Your grandmother seems wise, he replied. She was. Emma explained that her grandmother worked for rich families and believed that the real difference between social classes isn't just money, but knowledge, knowing how to behave, what to wear, and how to talk. Emma shared this knowledge with him. Michael stopped eating, moved by her kindness. "That means a lot to me," he said. "You're welcome. It's the least I can do," she replied. They finished lunch, and Michael showed great skill in using the knife and fork for his pizza. When they left the restaurant, Emma was practically glowing with happiness. "Lesson 1 complete," she announced. "Tomorrow we'll move on to rule number 7. Never ask about prices at a restaurant." "I can't wait," Michael said, genuinely excited for the first time in years. Emma returned to work, feeling delighted that she could help someone new to this lifestyle. Michael, after 3 weeks in the mountains, had learned about simplicity, but Emma was teaching him something more important. Sometimes the most giving people are those who have little themselves. Eating pizza with a knife and fork, even if it felt silly, could be fun with the right person. On the 3rd day of their training, Emma announced, "Today's the big day." Michael walked into the lobby with a notepad and a determined look on his face. It was advanced etiquette training in the real world. Just that morning he had been thinking about business deals, but now he felt like a lottery winner needing help with social skills. "Where are we going?" he asked, amused. "Le Bernardin," she said with a certain respect, as if it were a famous landmark. "If you can make it through dinner there without embarrassing yourself, you'll graduate from How to Be Rich 101. Michael nearly gasped. Le Bernardin was one of his favorite restaurants, and he knew the chef personally, but he kept that to himself. "Sounds a bit intimidating," he joked. "That's why I brought study materials," Emma said, revealing her notepad. It showed instructions for using cutlery in a fine dining setting. She had created a detailed map of plates, glasses, napkins, and silverware. Each item was numbered with tiny notes explaining their purposes. "Salad fork, main fork, dessert fork," she recited, like it was a sacred rule. "Always from left to right knives on the right, then spoons after the knives. Never use the wrong fork for the wrong course." Worriedly, he asked, "What if I forget?" "Then you end up as a joke on social media," she replied seriously. "I've seen it happen. A man used a fish fork for steak and went viral for it." Michael made a mental note to check if that really happened. 2 hours later, they sat at Le Bernardin. Emma was proud to have gotten a last-minute table, not knowing that Michael had called the manager to arrange it. The restaurant was elegant, with soft lighting and a calm atmosphere, where an evening meal cost about $500 per person. "Remember," Emma whispered, pretending to study the menu while keeping an eye on him. Michael glanced out of the corner of his eye. "Sit up straight, put the napkin on your lap, and please don't blow on the soup." He asked innocently, "Do people really blow on their soup?" Emma looked at him, trying to understand. Did rich people wait for it to cool naturally? The sommelier approached. Francois had known Michael for 5 years and always offered him the best wines. He looked at Michael, then at Emma, clearly puzzled but keeping his professional demeanor. "Good evening," Francois said with a thick French accent. "May I suggest a wine to go with your dinner?" Emma quickly spoke up. "Nothing too expensive," she said, looking meaningfully at Michael. "Something simple." Francois blinked slowly. In all his years serving Michael Blackwood, he had never heard anyone ask for a simple wine. Michael once ordered a $1,500 bottle just because he wanted something sweet. "How about a nice Bordeaux?" Francois offered carefully. "Perfect," Emma exclaimed. She whispered to Michael, "Always show that you can control your spending. Rich people don't need to buy the most expensive wine." Michael nodded, taking in this new lesson. The first course arrived. It looked like a beautiful piece of art. Emma switched into teacher mode. "Now watch," she said, picking up the outer fork. "You always start from the outside and work your way in. It's like unwrapping a present." Michael focused hard, cutting tiny bites and chewing slowly, almost as if he were solving a tricky math problem. "Excellent technique," Emma whispered, proud like a mother watching her child take their first steps. But during the second course, things took a turn. Michael, while carefully cutting his fish, accidentally bumped his elbow into the wine glass. The red liquid spilled across the table, splattering his shirt and creating a hush in the restaurant. "Oh no!" Emma gasped, springing up. "Your shirt!" "It's nothing," Michael replied, trying to brush it off, but Emma was already in action mode. "Let's head to the restroom. We need to rinse this off before it sets. She nearly pulled Michael through the restaurant, passing tables where other guests watched with curiosity. Emma was so focused on the wine stain that she didn't notice how the waiters slightly bowed as Michael walked by. "Good evening, Mr. Blackwood," murmured Robert, the head waiter. "Is everything all right, Mr. Blackwood?" asked Marie, the assistant. "Need any help, Mr. Blackwood?" offered Jean-Claude, the maitre d'. Emma, busy thinking about how to remove the stain, automatically corrected them. "He's not Mr. Blackwood. He's Mr. Michael, the lottery winner." The staff exchanged puzzled looks but kept their polite smiles. In the restroom, Emma insisted on walking him to the door. She shouted instructions on how to handle wine stains. "Always use cold water. Hot water sets the stain." "Got it," Michael replied, impressed by Emma's knowledge. When they returned to their table, the restaurant manager, Philippe Marot, was waiting with a serious expression. "Mr. Blackwood," Philippe said, ignoring Emma, "I'm terribly sorry about the incident. May I offer you a new shirt? We have some nice ones in our VIP wardrobe." Emma looked at Philippe, then at Michael, then back at Philippe. "Excuse me," she interrupted. "You've mixed up my friend with someone else. This is Michael, not Mr. Blackwood." Philippe looked puzzled. "But, madam, this is definitely a misunderstanding," Michael quickly added, giving Philippe a look that clearly said not to reveal anything. "It happens more often than you'd think." After 15 years in fine dining, Philippe had learned that the behavior of very rich clients could be hard to understand. If Michael wanted to pretend he wasn't Michael Blackwood, who was he to argue? "Of course," Philippe said slowly. "My mistake, Mr. Michael. May I still offer you the new shirt?" "That won't be necessary," Emma said firmly. "We'll manage with cold water and basic cleaning techniques." After Philippe left, looking confused but polite, Emma turned to Michael with a pleased expression. "See? That's exactly the type of embarrassing situation we want to avoid. Waiters in fancy places often assume that well-dressed customers are celebrities." "Very insightful," Michael agreed. "Now where were we? Oh yes, fish cutting technique. The secret is a 45-degree angle." The rest of dinner continued with Michael receiving friendly greetings from the staff while Emma kept teaching, unaware that she was giving etiquette lessons to a man who probably dined at places like that more times in a month than she had in her whole life. When they finally left, Emma was smiling brightly. "Mission accomplished," she said. "You acted like a true gentleman. Well, aside from the wine incident, which can happen to anyone." "Thanks for your patience," Michael said sincerely. "You're welcome." As they walked down the street, Emma talked excitedly about the next steps for Michael's transformation. He couldn't stop smiling. It had been years since he had so much fun, all thanks to a determined receptionist who was trying to help him. The fact that she was helping him with troubles he had mastered long ago made it even more entertaining. "We need to talk about your wardrobe," Emma declared the next morning, arriving at the lobby with the determination of a general on a mission. "You can't keep looking like you just walked out of a wildlife documentary." Michael glanced at his outfit, faded jeans, a cotton t-shirt, and worn sneakers. He thought about how much attention these clothes had gathered just 3 days ago. To be fair, Emma had a point. "Do you have a suggestion?" he asked, pretending to be clueless. "Suggestion?" Emma chuckled as if he had asked her to do something silly. "Michael, I have a great plan. We're going to change you from a backpacker to a millionaire in just 1 day." She pulled out a list from her pocket because, of course, Emma was always prepared. "First stop, Macy's, 2nd floor, men's section. We'll get as many clothes as we can for the best price using some clever negotiation techniques I learned from those reality shows about deal finders." Michael blinked slowly, a bit skeptical about the idea of learning from TV. Emma smiled with pride. "I've watched all the seasons twice. You'll be amazed by what I can do." 40 minutes later, they arrived at Macy's. Emma strode down the aisles like a leader and Michael followed, intrigued by her serious approach to shopping. "First," she said, stopping dramatically in front of the suits, "we need to create your new look. You want to look wealthy, but not too flashy. There's a knack to it." Michael asked, genuinely curious, "What do you mean?" "Oh, there's a big difference," Emma replied, selecting a navy blue suit. "Someone who knows how to spend money picks quality items, but those who don't just grab loud, flashy things that scream, 'Look at me!' A salesman named Steven approached, a friendly man with a well-groomed mustache. "Can I help you?" he asked. "Yes," Emma exclaimed, taking charge. "My friend needs a complete wardrobe. Suits, shirts, ties, shoes, everything. But we want fair prices." Steven looked between Michael and Emma, trying to figure out the unlikely duo. "Of course, I can show you some options," he said. But Emma interrupted, holding up her hand. "Before we see anything, do you have discounts for bulk purchases?" "Well, we do have a few promotions." "What kind?" Emma pressed for details. "Do you offer specific percentages or free items?" Michael watched in amazement as Emma questioned Steven like she was conducting an important investigation. She even took out a notepad to record the store's discount policies. "If we buy 3 shirts, do we get a discount on the 4th?" she asked. "We have a buy 2, get 1 free deal," Steven replied. "And ties? What's the deal with ties?" Emma continued, while Michael gently tried to speak up. "Maybe we could just look at the clothes." "Shh." Emma motioned for him to be quiet. "This is the most important part. Never begin negotiating after you've fallen for an item. Always set the terms first." Steven looked at Michael with an expression that clearly said, "First time shopping with her, huh?" "Let's start with the suits," Emma finally said. "Show us 3 options in the mid-price range, and I want to see the price tags before he tries anything on." Steven guided them through the section, showing suits priced between $400 and $800. Emma examined each price tag like it was crucial information, jotting down notes and mumbling numbers to herself. "This one?" She pointed at a $600 suit. "What's your best offer?" "The price is $600, Steven replied. "600 is the price for tourists," Emma said confidently, though it was clear she wasn't an expert. "What about serious buyers who want to get many items?" Steven looked around, nervous as if he were about to share a big secret. "I can check with my manager for maybe a 5% discount." 5%? Emma acted shocked. "You're dealing with a customer who plans to spend thousands today. That discount is for someone buying socks." Michael tried very hard not to laugh. He was shaking with the effort. Emma had turned into a strong negotiator, using methods that probably worked better at flea markets than in stores. "Let me talk to the manager," Steven sighed, clearly unsure of himself. As he walked away, Emma turned to Michael with a proud look. "You have to show that you're confident. Salespeople can sense when you're desperate from far away." "You're impressive," Michael said sincerely. Steven returned with an older, serious-looking man who seemed to be the manager. "I understand you're looking to make a big purchase," the manager said calmly. "Exactly," Emma clapped her hands. "My friend here needs a complete makeover with a flexible budget, but we want to get good value for our money. I can give you 10% off if you spend over $1,000. Emma pretended to think about the offer like it was a serious deal. 15% and free adjustments, she countered. 12% with free adjustments, she finally said, reaching out her hand dramatically. 2 hours later, Michael stood in front of the fitting room mirror in a Hugo Boss suit, a crisp white shirt, and a blue silk tie. The change was incredible. He had gone from a scruffy traveler to a polished executive in no time. "Oh my goodness," Emma exclaimed as he stepped out. "You look like a CEO." "Do you really think so?" he asked. "I'm sure Steven will love it." They chose the suit, 3 shirts, 2 ties, and black Oxford shoes. Steven started adding it up. "We're at $2,040 before the discount." Emma eagerly asked, "What will the total be with our deal?" $1,836, Steven replied. Emma turned to Michael with a smile that lit up the room. "We saved over $200. "Impressive," Michael agreed, taking out his credit card. "But wait," Emma said, holding his arm. "Let me try one more thing." She turned to Steven. "That $200 tie my friend was looking at, what's the best you can do?" Steven glanced at the tie Michael had mentioned. "The general discount is already applied." "Come on, Steven. A $200 tie for a nearly $2,000 purchase? You can do better than that." After another tense 10 minutes of bargaining, Emma knocked the price down to $150. "Victory!" she cried, doing a little dance in the store. "That's $50 off a tie! I'm a genius at bargaining!" Michael paid the bill, smiling as Emma shared her negotiation tips with every employee nearby. The trick, she explained to a passing salesperson, is never to accept the first price. There's always room to negotiate if you know how to ask. As they left the store with Emma carrying several bags like trophies, Michael quietly excused himself to use the restroom. In reality, he went back to Stephen and quietly handed over $300 in cash. "You can keep this as a tip. She worked hard and deserves to feel like a winner." Stephen looked at the money, then back at Michael. "Sir, this is very generous." "And Stephen," Michael smiled, "if she ever comes back, make sure she gets any discount she asks for. She's got a good heart." When Michael rejoined Emma on the sidewalk, she was still beaming with joy. "Do you realize what we just did? We transformed you into a classy man and saved a lot of money. I should seriously think about becoming a negotiation expert. A personal shopper can really make a difference." Michael watched as Emma carefully organized the shopping bags almost like a proud mom as they walked back to the hotel. Emma was excitedly planning the next step in Michael's makeover. He thought it was strange yet wonderful to see someone so happy about saving $50 on a tie, which cost less than his usual tips for waiters. Emma was teaching him about the true value of money, one lesson at a time, and he was enjoying every moment. The next day, Emma arrived in the lobby with a picnic basket that looked like it had been packed with love. "Surprise," she said, swinging the basket like she had won a prize. "Today is different. No lessons or shopping, just good old-fashioned fun in Central Park." Michael looked at the full basket and asked how many people she planned to feed. "Just us," she said, blushing a little. "Maybe I overdid it. I cook when I get nervous, and I was worried about today." Emma waved her arms excitedly. "I've never had a picnic with someone as special as you. What if you're used to fancy food? What if peanut butter sandwiches aren't good enough for you?" Michael tried not to laugh. "Emma, I grew up on peanut butter sandwiches. They are my favorite." Her face brightened. "Great! I made 12 different kinds. Peanut butter and jelly, peanut butter and banana, peanut butter and honey, 12 kinds in total," she continued. "I also brought chips, homemade cookies, and apple juice." When she opened the basket, it revealed a feast fit for a small party. About 40 minutes later, they were sitting on a checkered blanket in Central Park, surrounded by enough food for a festival. Emma had chosen a lovely spot under a tree with a view of the lake, where families were enjoying their day out. "Perfect," Emma said, arranging the sandwiches. "Nature, fresh air, and homemade food. It will help keep you grounded after everything that's changed for you." Michael took a bite of a peanut butter and banana sandwich, enjoying not just the taste but also the irony of it all. When was the last time he had eaten in a public park? Probably back in college over a decade ago. "Tell me about your dreams," he said, genuinely curious. "You mentioned you want to write." Emma's eyes sparkled. "I've always wanted to tell stories about regular people in amazing situations. Like a receptionist who finds out her neighbor is a retired secret agent, or a librarian who wins the lottery and travels the world looking for rare books." "Those stories sound interesting," Michael said sincerely. Emma shrugged. "They're just dreams." But Michael could see the spark of passion in her eyes. "My real dream is to open a bookstore cafe in Brooklyn, a cozy place where people can come to read, write, and talk about books. It would be like a big living room for book lovers." "Why don't you do it?" Michael asked. Emma laughed, but there was a hint of sadness in her voice. "With what money? Do you have any idea how much it costs to start a business in New York? Between rent, inventory, permits, and decor, we're talking at least $200,000. For me, it's like trying to buy the moon." Michael thought about it. To him, $200,000 was not much more than the price of his watch. But for Emma, it was a lifetime of impossible saving. "What about you?" Emma asked. "What are you planning to do with your lottery winnings? Any big dream you've always wanted to make real?" Before Michael could answer, his phone rang. He looked at the screen and frowned. It was David Chen, his chief financial officer, likely calling about the merger with the German hotel chain he had been working on for months. "Sorry," he said to Emma. "I need to take this. It's important." "Mr. Blackwood," David said, skipping formalities when Michael picked up. "We have a situation with the Mueller merger. They want to renegotiate the terms of acquisition. Wait, Michael interrupted, noticing that Emma was listening. Can you simplify that? Sir, we're talking about $2.3 billion, David replied. Make it simpler, Michael said firmly, giving Emma a meaningful look. There was a pause on the other end. Sir, are you okay? I'm fine. Just make it easy to understand. After 15 years of working together, David knew how to interpret Michael's unusual signals. Oh, you want me to keep it simple. I see. Well, let's say the big promotion you were waiting for is getting complicated by some company rule changes. Michael almost laughed at David's effort to make a big corporate merger sound normal. What do you suggest? Maybe it's better if we talk about this in person at your home later. Perfect idea, Michael said. He hung up and turned to Emma, who was looking at him curiously. Work, he said, trying to sound casual. Work? She asked. Yeah, Michael replied. McDonald's can get pretty complicated sometimes. Emma blinked. McDonald's has company mergers? Michael realized he had made a mistake. Well, not exactly. I meant shift mergers, when they combine the morning shift with the afternoon shift to save costs. Oh, Emma said, impressed. Even McDonald's is modernizing? Meetings about shift mergers? You must be like a senior manager or something. Something like that, Michael muttered, making a mental note not to take work calls near Emma again. What language were you speaking at the end? Emma asked, curious. It sounded like German. Michael paused. He had automatically said "see you later" in German to David, a habit from negotiating with German companies. That was German, he admitted. You speak German? Emma's eyes widened. That's amazing. Where did you learn it? Movies, Michael said quickly. I watch a lot of German movies. What kind of movies do you like? Emma asked as they enjoyed their picnic. Michael grinned. Documentaries about hamburgers and fast food places like McDonald's. Emma smiled. That's interesting. Michael nodded. Yeah, it's a global company. Suddenly his phone rang. It was Maria Santos, the director of the South American division. Hello, Miguel, Maria said cheerfully. We need to talk about the Sao Paulo contracts. Michael quickly replied in Spanish. I'm in a meeting. Can we chat later? Meeting? Are you sick? Maria joked. Very funny. I'll call you in an hour. Okay, but the Brazilians want an answer soon, Maria insisted. I promise I'll call back, Michael said before hanging up. He turned to find Emma staring at him in surprise. That was Spanish? You speak Spanish? She asked slowly. And German. And French too, he admitted, realizing he had shared too much. Wait, French? Emma exclaimed, drawing the attention of a nearby family. How many languages do you speak? 5, maybe 6 if you count basic Italian, he replied. Emma looked stunned, as if he had just revealed a big secret. 5 languages for a job at McDonald's? How did that happen? Michael searched for a good answer. I watch a lot of movies. Netflix has great shows from different countries. So you learned 5 languages from Netflix, Michael added. And YouTube has tons of educational stuff. There are apps like Duolingo that help, hoping it sounded realistic. That's impressive. You must be really smart, Emma replied, amazed. Just dedicated, Michael said humbly. Emma laughed, a sound full of admiration. You're a lucky person who learned so much from movies. You should write a book about your life. Just then, his phone rang again, showing it was the French office. Nope, he said, hanging up without answering. No more work today. But what if it's important? Emma asked. Nothing is more important than enjoying peanut butter sandwiches with a friend, Michael said sincerely. Emma's face lit up with a bright smile. They spent the afternoon chatting, sharing funny stories about strange hotel guests, and making up silly tales about life at McDonald's. They carefully skipped topics that felt too personal. As the sun began to set, Emma packed up the picnic with impressive speed. This was the best day in weeks, she declared. Thanks for joining me, Michael replied. It's been ages since I relaxed like this. As they walked back through the park, Emma suddenly stopped. Michael, please promise me that if you get famous, you won't forget regular people like me. Michael looked at her, this kind person who had shared her dreams and friendship without any conditions. Emma, he said seriously, I promise. People like you are exactly the ones I'll always remember. For the first time in days, Michael had spoken the truth. Emma spent the night awake, staring at the ceiling of her small apartment in Queens, thinking about the strange events of the last few days. Michael could speak 5 languages and got calls about business deals. All the staff at fancy restaurants treated him like someone important. Something didn't add up. The next morning, Emma went to work with a mission: to find out who Michael Blackwood really was. She had seen enough crime shows to know that any serious investigation needed some quiet observation. The problem was, Emma had as much spying skill as an elephant trying to hide. "I need a disguise," she said to herself as she dug through the lost and found drawer behind the front desk. "Something to make me invisible." 5 minutes later, Emma came out looking like a strange version of a detective. She wore big dark sunglasses, a bright pink sun hat that a guest had forgotten, and a newspaper with holes poked in it to look like a pair of binoculars. The final look was more like someone escaping from a hospital than a real spy. "Perfect," whispered Emma, hiding behind a marble column in the lobby. "Now I just have to wait for him to show up." What Emma didn't know was that the moment she put on those silly glasses, Tony, the head of security, had alerted his team. "Everyone, Emma's acting strangely. She's wearing a weird disguise and hiding behind column 3. Keep your distance, but keep an eye on her." At 10 a.m., Michael arrived in the lobby. He was wearing one of the new shirts Emma had helped him pick out and headed for the elevator, unaware he was being quietly followed by a woman in oversized sunglasses and carrying a newspaper. Emma tried to sneak after him, trying to match her steps to the lobby's background music. Unfortunately, the music was slow, and Emma moved as if she were in an action movie. "Suspect heading to the elevator," she said to herself, pretending to read her newspaper with too much confidence. What Emma also didn't notice was that Marcus and Steve, 2 security guards, were now following her, trying to make sense of what she was doing. "She's talking to herself," Steve reported. "Noted," replied Tony. "Keep watching." Michael got on the elevator and Emma rushed toward the stairs, eager to reach his floor first. She climbed 2 flights in high heels, arriving out of breath just as the elevator doors opened. "Yes," she said quietly, raising her newspaper to hide behind. Michael stepped out of the elevator and walked down the hall toward the presidential suite, and Emma followed at what she thought was a good distance, though anyone could easily see her. "Suspect entering the presidential suite," Emma murmured, making notes in her mind. Way too relaxed for someone who should be amazed by luxury. Behind her, Marcus and Steve climbed the stairs, both puzzled about why the hotel's usual receptionist had suddenly started acting like a secret agent. Emma decided she needed a better view, so she hid behind an old housekeeping cart in the hallway. Her sunglasses shone brightly in the light. "Base, this is Agent Emma," she whispered to herself, pretending to be on a mission. "Target in position, waiting for further updates." 15 minutes later, the door opened and Michael stepped out, now dressed in a sharp suit. Emma was shocked. Where had the awkward lottery winner gone? "What a change," she said quietly, feeling suspicious. Michael walked toward the elevator, and Emma knew she had to follow him. This time, she thought it would be smart to borrow a room service cart to blend in. She pushed the cart filled with clean towels down the hallway, wearing her sunglasses and a pink sun hat, trying her best to look like a regular hotel staff member. "This is clever," she murmured. "No one suspects the cleaning crew." Marcus saw her pass by with the cart and spoke into his radio. "Now she's using a room service cart. She borrowed it without asking. Keep watching, and someone might notice it's missing." Emma trailed Michael down to the ground floor, where he entered the general manager's office. She parked her cart behind a large decorative plant and pulled out her newspaper again, this time looking through holes she'd made. Through the holes in the paper, she watched Michael go into Richard Morgan's office and close the door. The 2 men began talking seriously, gesturing and looking at papers. Emma felt excited, thinking she had stumbled upon a secret meeting. "This proves everything," she whispered to herself. What Emma didn't know was that the real conversation was about her. "Michael, we need to talk about Emma," Richard said. "She's been acting oddly." "Odd how?" Michael replied. "Well, yesterday she asked me about security rules for spotting corporate spies. And today, she showed up dressed in a way I can't even explain." As Michael looked out the window, he spotted Emma crouched behind a plant, wearing big sunglasses and holding a newspaper with holes in it. He tried not to laugh. "Let me take care of it." But in Emma's mind, the serious talk confirmed her growing suspicions. "Corporate spy," she whispered dramatically. "Probably sent here to steal secrets. That's why he speaks so many languages and gets mysterious calls." Emma was so focused on her theory that she didn't notice Steve had walked up behind her. "Emma," Steve said softly. Emma jumped back, knocking over the room service cart and sending towels flying across the lobby. "Steve!" she shouted, her giant sunglasses wobbling. "You scared me!" "Are you okay? You're hiding behind the plants," he asked. "I'm not hiding," Emma replied, trying to stand tall despite her flustered state. "I'm investigating." "Investigating what?" Steve asked, looking confused. Emma glanced around, noticing several guests watching her. She lowered her voice, leaning closer to Steve. "Michael isn't who he says he is. I have proof." "What kind of proof?" "He speaks 5 languages, gets calls about big company deals, and I just saw him having a secret meeting with Mr. Morgan." Emma pointed dramatically with a crumpled newspaper. "He's obviously a corporate spy." Steve looked at her, taking in her oversized sunglasses and wild theory. He decided to suggest a break. "How about getting some coffee?" "I can't stop now, Steve. I'm about to expose an international spy ring." Just then, Michael walked out of Richard's office and spotted Emma in the middle of the lobby, surrounded by scattered towels. "Emma," he said, clearly worried, "are you okay?" Emma turned to him, the suspicion in her eyes clear even behind her silly sunglasses. "I'm just fine, Michael," she said, emphasizing his name. "Just observing hotel activity." Michael took in the sight of her pink hat, silly sunglasses, and the disarray caused by the towels. Trying to hold back laughter, he asked, "Is that a disguise?" "It's not a disguise," Emma insisted. "It's an alternative uniform for behavioral observation." In that moment, Michael realized his lighthearted joke had sparked a wild theory in Emma's mind, and he had no idea how to set things right without telling her the truth. After seeing her disguise antics, he knew he had to act quickly before she called for help in what she believed was a case of corporate spying. He came up with a plan of dinner. Well, not exactly romantic, he thought to himself as he made the arrangements. More like a thank-you dinner that might seem romantic depending on the mood. Michael asked the staff to set up the hotel's private rooftop terrace. It was usually for big events, but he wanted it to look welcoming without being too fancy. He instructed them to create a blend of simple yet intentional touches, resulting in an unexpected charm. At 7 p.m., Emma arrived at the terrace in the nicest dress she owned, a simple black one she found on sale. When she saw the setup, her suspicions about Michael faded, replaced by surprise. "Michael," she whispered, looking around. "This is beautiful." And it truly was. The string lights gave the area a warm glow, and a small table was set with plain white plates. There were candles that looked ordinary but smelled delightful. "I wanted to thank you," Michael said, a bit anxious, "for everything. You've helped me so much, the makeover, the lessons, the advice. Without you, I'd still be trying to eat pizza in a messy way." Emma laughed, feeling her doubts slip away. "This doesn't feel like corporate spying. It feels like a genuinely thankful man. You didn't have to do all this." "I wanted to," Michael replied, earnest and heartfelt. He truly meant it. Emma appreciated Michael, even if his reasons for being nice were more complicated than she understood. Dinner started off perfectly. Michael ordered simple food from the hotel restaurant: grilled salmon, rice, and steamed vegetables. Nothing too fancy that might make her question his comfort with fine dining. As they ate, Emma said, "I'm sorry about earlier today. I guess I got a little paranoid." Michael asked, "Paranoid about what?" Emma blushed. "Promise you won't laugh? I thought you might be a corporate spy." Michael nearly choked on his salmon. "A corporate spy? Really?" "I know it sounds ridiculous now, but you speak all those languages and get mysterious phone calls," Emma explained, waving her fork around. "Everyone seems to know who you are, like you're famous or something." "Maybe I just have one of those familiar faces," Michael joked. "That must be it," Emma laughed, feeling relieved to have a simple answer. They continued talking and laughing, and the mood became more relaxed. Emma shared stories about her family, her dreams of becoming a writer, and her theories about why wealthy hotel guests always made such odd requests. "Last week," she said, waving a spoonful of rice, "a woman asked me to make it rain less because it was ruining her honeymoon. Like I control the weather." Michael laughed loudly. "And what did you say?" "I told her I'd check with the weather department," Emma replied with a grin. "She was happy and tipped me $5. That's when trouble struck." Emma made big hand gestures to show how she pretended to call a climate control department when her elbow hit the lemon butter sauce. The plate tipped and spilled yellow sauce all over her black dress. "Oh no!" Emma shouted, quickly getting up. "My dress! It's the only nice one I have." Michael stood up without thinking and took off his shirt. "Here, use this to clean it up." Emma gratefully took the shirt, too focused on the mess to notice its value. If she had looked closer, she might have seen the tag that indicated it was expensive silk. "Thank you," she said, starting to blot the sauce from her dress with Michael's shirt. Michael watched in shock as Emma treated his shirt like a paper towel. She scrubbed the stain hard and even wiped her hands on it. "I think I got most of it out," she said, checking her dress. "Your shirt is super absorbent." Michael swallowed hard, knowing the shirt now looked like a map covered in yellow stains. "I'm glad it helped," he managed to say. "I'll wash it and bring it back tomorrow," Emma promised, still unaware of what she was ruining. "Butter sauce comes out pretty easily if you know the right trick." "Don't worry about it," Michael said quickly, imagining Emma using regular detergent in the washing machine. Emma felt she had ruined the evening and apologized. "Michael, I'm so sorry I messed up the whole night. You planned this beautiful dinner and now—" She gestured to her dress and his ruined shirt. "I just can't handle fancy situations." "Emma," Michael said firmly, "you didn't ruin anything. Accidents happen. But your shirt, well, it's just a shirt. A shirt that cost more than your monthly salary, but still just a shirt." Emma looked at him with admiration. "You're very understanding. Most men would have been upset." "Why would I be upset over a little sauce?" he replied. Emma hesitated. "That shirt must have cost at least $50. Even for someone who just won the lottery, $50 is still a lot." Michael nodded seriously. "That's true. $50 is a fair amount." Emma felt even worse. "Look, I'll buy you a new shirt. It might take me a few weeks. I'll have to save up." But Michael interrupted. "No, it was an accident." He smiled. "It was worth it just to see your skills in action. You've got some enthusiastic techniques." Emma laughed, finally feeling relaxed. "I learned from my grandmother. She used to say, 'Any stain can be removed if you're determined enough.' Your grandmother was a wise woman." They finished dinner with Emma still wearing the $800 Italian silk shirt tied around her waist like an apron, occasionally wiping her hands on it whenever she picked up something that might stain. Michael watched her every move, fascinated. When they finally said goodbye, Emma said, "That was the loveliest night. Thank you for showing me that lottery winners can be regular people." "Thank you for showing me that regular people can be extraordinary," Michael replied. After Emma left, Michael stood alone on the terrace, looking at the lemon sauce stain on the table. He pulled out his phone and called his assistant, James. "I need you to order 12 more of those blue Zegna shirts I always wear. I have a feeling I'm going to need them." "12, sir? May I ask why?" Michael looked out at the city lights, thinking about Emma, likely trying to clean sauce out of Italian silk in her tiny laundry room. "Let's just say I met someone who has an enthusiastic relationship with sauces." For the first time in years, Michael Blackwood went to bed smiling over a ruined shirt. The next morning, Emma woke up still smiling about dinner. Michael's shirt was hanging in her bathroom, soaking in a mix of detergent and baking soda that her grandmother swore could remove any stain known to man. "Poor guy," she murmured while making instant coffee. "I bet that shirt is one of the only fancy things he bought with his lottery money." While waiting for her coffee, Emma sat down at her old laptop, the one she bought 3 years ago. She had woken up with a new idea for a short story about a lottery winner who didn't realize he was rich. The story would be inspired by Michael, of course, with a few changes to keep his privacy safe. She thought about what would be a good last name for the character, something classy but not too fancy. That's when a playful idea crossed her mind. Why not look up Michael Blackwood to make sure there wasn't a famous person with that name? Just a quick search, she told herself. So, she opened her browser. To avoid any problems with copyright, Emma typed Michael Blackwood into the search bar and hit enter, expecting to see a few social media profiles of regular folks. What showed up on the screen made her drop her coffee. Michael Blackwood, CEO of Blackwood Hospitality Group, worth $8 billion. Emma blinked, rubbed her eyes, and looked again. That must be someone else, she muttered as she clicked on the first link. There must be tons of Michael Blackwoods out there. The Forbes page opened, showing a man in a sharp suit, perfectly styled hair, and a confident smile. Emma stared at the photo, trying to process what she was seeing. It was Michael, the same Michael she had once taught to eat pizza with a fork and knife. "No!" she shouted, loud enough that her neighbors knocked on the wall. She clicked link after link, each page confirming what she didn't want to believe. Michael Blackwood, 34 years old, heir to the Blackwood Hotel empire, one of the richest people in America. The Blackwood Hospitality Group owned 44 luxury hotels around the world, including the famous Grand Plaza Hotel in Manhattan. Emma couldn't believe it. He owned the hotel where she worked. She read on, each sentence hitting her like a heavy blow. Known for being private and generous, he had graduated from Harvard Business School and spoke 6 languages fluently. Emma couldn't help but feel embarrassed about their past, remembering offering him $5 for a sandwich and suggesting he stay at a cheap hostel. As she scrolled down, she found a gallery of Michael at charity events, always well-dressed beside prominent people. There he was, opening a hospital he had funded and receiving awards for his generosity. Then she saw it, a photo of him at a fundraising event wearing the same shirt she had turned into a cleaning rag the night before. $800, she read in the caption, describing his casual look. Emma looked towards her bathroom, where that expensive shirt was soaking in a mix of baking soda and detergent. "I ruined an $800 shirt," she screamed, falling off her chair. But the worst part was still to come. She discovered a recent Vanity Fair article titled, "Why the Ultra-Rich Are Living Like Regular People." Emma read the words in the article, feeling more and more shocked. More and more billionaires are living like regular people for fun. It hit her hard. Michael wasn't just someone trying to fit into the rich world. He was pretending to be poor while spending time with her. Emma shouted in her empty apartment, realizing she was just part of his experiment. She imagined Michael laughing with his wealthy friends about her, the receptionist who tried to help him with manners, and her silly tips on saving money. Emma stood up and began pacing in her small apartment, waving her hands. "A manual on how not to be poor," she yelled, remembering the list she made. "I wrote a guide for a billionaire." She recalled feeling proud when he used a fork and knife to eat pizza. She thought he appreciated her help, but now she felt foolish. The silly receptionist trying to teach one of America's richest men how to be refined, she whispered, her cheeks warm with embarrassment. Suddenly, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Michael. "Good morning. Hope the shirt was easy to clean. Can we meet for lunch?" Emma looked at the message, then at the photos of Michael on her laptop and back at her phone. She read, "Meet for lunch," realizing he just wanted to continue his fun at her expense. She quickly typed back, "Sure. Can't wait for our next lesson, Mr. Blackwood," hitting send before she could think twice. A couple of minutes later, her phone rang. It was Michael. Emma stared at the screen, picturing his reaction when he learned their game was over. Part of her wanted to answer and yell, while another part wished to ignore him and pretend nothing was wrong. In the end, the part that wanted to hide won. She let the phone ring, closed her laptop, and went to the bathroom to check on the expensive shirt, which was beyond help. "Now I understand why everyone treated him so well," she mumbled, looking at the ruined shirt. With that realization, Emma did what anyone might do after feeling foolish in front of a billionaire. She crawled back into bed, pulling the covers over her head. For 2 hours, she hid there, planning what she would say to him. She decided she wouldn't just walk away and let Michael keep laughing. No, she would go to the hotel and tell him how she felt. Unfortunately, Emma forgot it was Tuesday morning. The Grand Plaza lobby was full of tourists taking photos, travelers checking in, and influencers filming their experiences. Emma pushed her way through the crowd, still in her pajamas, and her hair a mess. Michael was at the front desk, talking when he spotted her coming towards him, looking determined. "Emma," he called out, concerned about her expression. "What's wrong?" "You made a fool out of me," she replied. Emma shouted across the busy lobby, and everyone instantly quieted down. Tourists stopped taking photos, seniors stopped complaining about prices, and even the influencers paused their videos. "Emma," Michael said, trying to keep his voice down, "can we talk somewhere private?" Emma laughed loudly. "Like you talked privately with your wealthy friends about that clueless receptionist trying to teach you manners?" Michael saw several tourists take their phones out to record. "I never said anything like that," he said, sounding serious. "Of course not," Emma shot back, clearly upset. "You just laughed while I made a fool of myself." She started counting on her fingers, her voice getting louder. "I taught you how to eat pizza properly." A Japanese tourist whispered to his wife, curious if this was a show. "I made you a guide on managing your money. I showed you how to use coupons." Two influencers began filming when they sensed an opportunity for a viral moment. "I told you not to take things from your hotel." Michael bit his lip, trying not to laugh at how silly this all felt. "Emma," he tried again, "let me explain." "Explain what?" Emma threw her arms up dramatically. "How funny it was when I offered a wealthy person $5 for a sandwich?" The crowd murmured, intrigued. "Or how ridiculous it was when I suggested you stay at a budget place?" she continued, enjoying the attention. "Or when I haggled for a discount on your expensive tie?" Michael noticed Richard, who was watching from behind the counter, clearly entertained. "And the best part," Emma said with a sarcastic tone, "was when I told one of the richest men in America why wealthy people can be out of touch." A tourist clapped, thinking it was part of the hotel's entertainment. "Emma, please." Michael stepped closer, but she held up her hand. "Don't come near me. I can't believe I fell for your act." "It wasn't an act," he replied. "What was it then? A way to feel better by pretending to be just like everyone else?" Michael opened his mouth to explain, but Emma wasn't done. "Oh, and thanks for ruining my favorite blouse with that sauce on my expensive shirt." The crowd murmured again, amazed at the price of the shirt. "Wait," Michael said, confused. "You ruined your shirt?" "I ruined your expensive shirt," Emma shouted. Michael blinked. "I didn't ruin anything." "I have many of those shirts." The words slipped out and Emma nearly exploded. "You have many $800 shirts?" Richard discreetly signaled for security to be ready, not to stop Emma but to manage the growing crowd. "And you know what else?" Emma continued, clearly exhausted. "I bet you even checked into my life to make sure I was poor enough for your experiment." Michael froze. Emma saw the look on his face and her heart sank. "You did research on me," she said softly, her anger turning into sadness. "You really looked into my life?" "It's just standard security procedure," Michael replied. "Standard procedure?" Emma exclaimed, tears welling in her eyes. "You invaded my privacy just to have fun with me." The crowd shifted uncomfortably. This was no longer just entertainment. It felt personal and hurtful. "I never meant to hurt you," Michael said sincerely. "But you did," Emma replied, her voice shaking. "You made me feel special, like I was helping someone, and all along, I was just part of the show." Emma glanced around, realizing that dozens of people were recording her. "Great," she muttered. "Now it'll be a meme." In that moment, Emma did what anyone would do to keep their dignity. After discovering she had been deceived by a wealthy man in front of many onlookers, she turned and left. She stumbled slightly as she went through the revolving door, but quickly regained her composure and continued out. The crowd buzzed with whispers and camera flashes as Michael stood there, surrounded by curious onlookers while Richard hurriedly talked into his radio about managing the situation. For the first time, Michael felt poor at heart. Emma returned to the hotel 3 hours later, wearing fresh clothes and carrying a resignation letter she had rewritten several times. She decided it was time to leave with dignity, formally handing in her notice and fading from view. The lobby was still busy, but thankfully, no one was recording another dramatic scene. Emma approached the front desk where Richard was working. "Mr. Morgan," she said with determination, "I'm here to resign." Richard looked at the letter, then back at Emma, sighing. "Emma, you don't have to—" "Yes, I do," Emma declared, her voice strong. "I can't stay in a place where I was humiliated by certain billionaires who think it's funny to play tricks on employees." A few guests glanced over in interest. "I accept your resignation," Richard replied gently, "but I wish you'd think it through." "Never," Emma said, slapping her hand on the desk. "My dignity is worth more than any job." She turned to leave dramatically, her hair flowing behind her like in a movie. Unfortunately, she forgot about her new shoes with smooth soles, and her feet slipped on the shiny marble floor. She stumbled as her arms flailed to regain her balance. Michael had quietly entered the lobby, hoping for a moment to talk to her, and instinctively stepped forward. "Emma, wait!" he called, reaching out. "No!" Emma shouted, pushing his help away. Her force caused her to lose her balance even more. "I don't need your help!" In trying to keep him away, she lost her footing and fell backward into the fountain in the center of the lobby. The splash was huge. Emma rose up from the water like a furious mermaid, completely soaked, with a water plant stuck in her hair. The entire lobby went silent. Tourists, staff, and guests were all staring at her, sitting in the fountain, drenched and fuming. "I'm fine!" she shouted, trying to maintain her dignity while pulling water plants from her face. "Emma, let me help," Michael offered, moving closer. "I said I'm fine," Emma snapped back, attempting to get out of the fountain gracefully. But her foot slipped again, and she fell back into the water with another big splash. At least 6 people began recording as Emma finally climbed out of the fountain, looking like a wet cat, leaving a trail of water and pond plants across the fancy lobby. "I'm going home now," she said, trying to sound composed even though she was dripping with water. "I wish you all a dry day." She walked toward the exit, leaving wet footprints behind. Then she noticed one of her shoes was still in the fountain. Anna glanced at the shoe floating among the lily pads, then looked at the crowd, and finally at Michael, who was clearly trying to hold back laughter. "You can keep the shoe," Emma said, trying to stay dignified. "Think of it as a parting gift." Emma Rodriguez walked out of the Grand Plaza Hotel, limping on one foot, leaving behind a trail of water and a single shoe. Little did she know, a video of her mishap would soon go viral. 3 hours later, back home and feeling embarrassed about her day, her phone buzzed nonstop with notifications. The first video she clicked on had 2 million views, titled, "Receptionist Teaches Billionaire How to Be Poor." The second video had 3 million views with the title, "Hotel Worker Confronts Billionaire Owner and Falls in Fountain." The third one had 5 million views titled, "Plot Twist. She Tried to Teach Manners to the Hotel Owner." Emma scrolled through comments, laughing at some reactions. "I lost it when she yelled about discount coupons," one said. Another comment read, "Her expression is priceless. Someone should give her a reality show." Frustrated, Emma threw her phone on the couch and exclaimed, "I'm a meme." Just then, her best friend Jessica called. "Emma, you're on TikTok." "I know," Emma groaned. "I've got 5 million views for falling into a fountain while teaching a billionaire about coupons." Jessica replied cheerfully, "At least you have an interesting story now." Emma looked back at her buzzing phone and said, "Yeah, next time remind me to wear shoes with grip." Just like that, Emma became famous for all the wrong reasons, showing that life has a funny way of testing our dignity. 2 weeks after the fountain incident, which she now called it in her head, Emma got a job at Books and Tears, a cozy bookstore in Brooklyn. It was decorated in a quirky style with chipped teacups and wilted plants. The owner, Harold, an older man with a thoughtful look and glasses he insisted were vintage, hired her mainly to attract customers. "You're famous," Harold said on her first day. "People will come here just to see you." Emma thought he might be too optimistic, but she was wrong. On her first day, 12 people visited, then 23 the next day, and on the third day, there was even a line outside. "You're the fountain girl," a young woman said, holding up her phone for a selfie. "Did you really show that billionaire how to use coupons?" asked a curious man. A proud mother added, "My daughter has watched the video 50 times. She thinks you're a hero for standing up." Emma looked at Harold, who was thrilled to see the store doing so well. "Maybe," Emma said thoughtfully, "I should create a special section here related to what happened." And so the section for books on how to live like you're poor was created. It was a collection of books about budgeting, social manners, and stories from rich people who chose to experience life as if they were poor. The section included well-known titles like How to Live on $1 a Day and A Survival Guide for Former Rich People. Emma's favorite was Slumming for Dummies. She told a journalist from the Brooklyn paper that it was a smart look at the gap between wealth and real life. Emma had learned to speak this way after watching several documentaries about modern art. This section became so popular that Harold asked Emma to create special workshops. In front of an audience of 20 at the bookstore, Emma announced a workshop on how to spot disguised billionaires. She shared clues like speaking different languages learned from movies, getting odd calls about business deals, and eating pizza with a knife and fork without complaining. The audience laughed and took notes as if they were in a college lecture. While Emma was building her career as the rich people detective, Michael Blackwood faced a tough time with his identity. Sitting in his office at Blackwood Tower, he looked out at the city and felt completely lost. Emma had been the first person in years to treat him like an ordinary person, and he felt he had messed it all up. Her words lingered in his mind. Rich people are out of touch with reality. Was there truth in that? That was the moment Michael decided to make a big change. He resolved to follow the money-saving tips Emma had shared. "James," he called to his assistant, "cancel the reservation at the French restaurant. I'll just have a peanut butter sandwich at home." James blinked in disbelief. "Sir, next time we go to the grocery store, remind me to bring coupons," Michael added, recalling Emma's advice that saving money was important. Over the next few days, Michael's team watched with growing worry as their boss tried out new ways to save money. He brought peanut butter sandwiches to work in brown paper bags and tried to use $50 coupons at the grocery store, causing confusion and delays. He even began reusing paper napkins to reduce waste and replaced his expensive wine with juice boxes. During a meeting, Michael's financial director, David Chen, raised a concern. "The shareholders are worried. There are rumors you're having financial trouble." "Why?" Michael asked, chewing on his sandwich. "Well, sir, yesterday you were seen using a $2 coupon at Whole Foods. The manager posted about it on Instagram." "David, do you think I'm out of touch with reality?" Michael replied. "Sir, normal people use coupons," David said. He looked at Michael, who was still eating his peanut butter sandwich and wearing a slightly wrinkled tie that looked like it had been washed at home. David came to a clear conclusion. Michael Blackwood was having a breakdown because of a receptionist. And the worst part was that Emma probably had no idea about the chaos she had stirred in the life of Manhattan's wealthiest man. Emma was busy organizing the book section when the sound of the bookstore bell rang. She looked up, expecting another fan of her viral videos, and almost knocked over a stack of books. To her surprise, Michael Blackwood stood at the door, but this was a different version of him. He wore regular jeans, not designer ones, a plain t-shirt instead of a fancy brand, and sneakers that looked like they were bought from a normal store. "Emma," he said. He said hesitantly, "Can I talk to you?" Emma looked around and was relieved to see that it was Monday morning, and the bookstore was empty except for Harold at the back, organizing poetry books and pretending not to listen. "Are you here to sue me?" Emma asked, crossing her arms. "Because I still owe you for an $800 shirt." "Actually," Michael said with a sad smile, "I came to say I'm sorry and to share my feelings." He took a deep breath. "Emma, I'm in love with you." Emma blinked, surprised. "You're what?" "Completely in love," he said, stepping closer. "And before you say it doesn't make sense because we haven't known each other long or because I've made mistakes, remember that video of you falling into the fountain?" Emma interrupted, looking alarmed. "All those videos? 47 times." Michael smiled warmly for the first time in weeks. "My favorite is the one where you get excited about discounts. It has 5 million views and counting." Emma hid her face. "I'm a meme. You're the most genuine person I've ever met," Michael replied seriously. "You gave me $5 for food, not because you wanted something in return, but because you thought I was hungry." "I did look a bit thin," Emma said, lowering her hands. When was the last time someone cared if I was hungry? Michael mused. Not the CEO or the billionaire, just me. I've never met anyone who treated me like a regular person. Emma looked at him thoughtfully. I know I lied, and I know I hurt you, but those weeks with you were the happiest I've had in a long time. You even taught me how to eat pizza with a fork and knife. He chuckled. You made me a guide on how to save money, which is still pretty incorrect. Emma started to smile. And you showed me that the best gift can just be giving someone your attention. After a moment, Emma said, I don't hold a grudge. Plus, it was kind of fun teaching a billionaire how to be normal. Michael laughed, feeling relieved. So, is there any chance you'll forgive me? I already did, she replied. Emma paused. But I have a confession. What is it? Emma walked to the counter and pulled out a small box. I kept all the coupons you forgot during our outings. She opened the box to show a tidy collection of discount coupons. I figured rich people often forget to save money. Michael looked at the coupons. $2 off pizza, 50 cents off ice cream. You kept my coupons, he said, genuinely touched. I thought maybe you'd want them someday. He picked up a coupon for sandwiches. Emma Rodriguez, would you be my girlfriend? Seriously? She smiled. A billionaire is asking me out in a small bookstore? A man who learned about coupons is asking the woman who showed him how to be human, Michael corrected her. Emma thought for a moment. Okay, but I have one condition. What's that? No expensive gifts for the first 6 months, she said firmly. I want to make sure you're interested in me, not just trying to impress me with money. Peanut butter sandwiches and picnics in the park sound perfect, he grinned. And yes, you can keep using those coupons. Saving is important no matter how much money you have. Michael kissed Emma right there in the bookstore, and Harold discreetly applauded from the back of the store. For the first time, Michael Blackwood felt truly rich. 3 months later, Emma stood in front of her mirror in her small apartment, adjusting the pearl necklace Jessica had lent her. She wore a simple but elegant white dress she had found on sale thanks to a friendly sales clerk. I still can't believe I'm getting married at the place where I fell into a fountain, she said to Jessica, her maid of honor. And just 3 months after you shared your feelings, Jessica laughed. You both really don't waste time. When you know, Emma replied with a smile. Besides, Michael said waiting would just give him more time to think of ways to impress me. New stories and rumors about him were swirling around. The wedding was a one-of-a-kind event that only Emma and Michael could create. They had a simple ceremony in Central Park, right where they had enjoyed their picnic before. The reception took place on the rooftop of the Grand Plaza. The decorations were kept simple, with string lights, flowers from a local market, and a sign that humorously declared it a coupon-free zone, a little joke between them. The guests were a mixed bunch. Harold from the bookstore sat beside David Chen, the CFO. Tony, the security guard, was chatting with Richard Morgan. There were at least 10 people who knew Emma from her popular videos, all there to support this unexpected couple. Dear friends, the officiant began, we are gathered here today to join Emma and Michael, 2 people who show us that true love can come from the most amusing misunderstandings. Emma chuckled, thinking back on all the funny moments that led them to this day. But before they exchanged vows, the officiant added, the bride would like to make a special presentation. Emma pulled a small envelope from her sleeve. Michael, she said with a serious tone, I have something special for you. Michael looked at her with curiosity as Emma opened the envelope. Honeymoon discount coupons, she announced proudly. 15% off the inn at Martha's Vineyard and free breakfast if we stay 3 nights. Michael couldn't help but laugh so hard that he nearly dropped the rings. Did you really bring coupons to our wedding? He asked in disbelief. They're honeymoon coupons, Emma said, defending herself. And look at this one. It's a discount on bike rentals. The guests burst out laughing. From the back, Harold shouted, That's my girl. I accept all the coupons, Michael said with a grin, and I promise to use them proudly. When it was time for the vows, Michael held Emma's hands tightly. Emma, he began, 3 months ago, you taught me something that no school ever could, the real value of things. You showed me that $5 given with love is worth more than 1,000 given out of duty. You taught me that eating pizza with a fork and knife can be funny, and that even the richest can still learn how to be kind. Tears of joy filled Emma's eyes, running her makeup. "You showed me that dreams can come true in unexpected ways," she said. "Who would have thought that teaching manners to a lottery winner would lead me to the love of my life? You taught me that sometimes the best things come in surprising packages." Michael added, "And who love my coupons?" Emma laughed through her tears. After the ceremony, during the reception on the terrace, Richard Morgan toasted to Emma, who turned their hotel into a hit romantic story, and to Michael, who showed that even billionaires can learn that love is priceless, even with a discount if you know where to look. A few days later, Emma was in the temporary office she had set up in an empty room at the Grand Plaza. On the desk were business plans, financial sheets, and a pile of coupons sorted by category. "My training program has 5 hotels interested," Emma told Michael, who was sitting in a simple chair eating a peanut butter sandwich. "What's the concept?" he asked. "Simple. Train staff to treat every guest like a VIP, no matter what they look like." Emma showed him a presentation. "Lesson number 1, the guy with the torn backpack might be your future boss." Michael laughed. "And the sustainability program is working great. We saved $40,000 just by reusing towels and reducing food waste." "Forbes wants to do a story about how a receptionist changed hotel management with discount coupons," Michael said proudly. "I'll only agree if they use the photo of me falling into the fountain," Emma replied with a smile. That night in their bigger apartment in Brooklyn, which Emma insisted on, they planned their next adventure. "Michael, what if we opened our own hotel chain? Small, affordable, and where everyone is treated like royalty. Can I create a training manual called How Not to Judge Guests by Their Appearance?" Emma asked excitedly. "You can. And can I start a savings program based on your advice?" Emma threw herself into Michael's arms. "I knew I loved you from the moment you agreed to eat pizza with a fork and knife. And I knew I loved you from the moment you offered me $5 to buy a sandwich," Michael replied, kissing his wife. What did you think of Michael and Emma's story? Let us know in the comments. On a scale from 0 to 10, what's your rating? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our stories. Please provide the text you would like me to rewrite, and I'll be happy to help.